So, lads, all I'm going to say is that I don't understand why the WNBA players tried to say that there was no conflict between Fee and Stewie, conflict of interest between Fee and Stewie, being on the NBPA committee due to Unrivaled. And I think it's we have to be honest here. There's an obvious and major conflict of interest. Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Like, it's really, really not the biggest deal in the world. It's a conflict. It's completely conflict of interest. And I don't understand why they tried to fight so much. And Stewie came out. Stewie's was my favorite response. It's not a conflict of interest yet. Basically, it's not a conflict of interest until you don't give us what we want. Then we're going to make it a conflict of interest. And I'm like, no, it is a conflict of interest. It's not saying. And then you have people coming out there and saying, oh, we trust Nafisa Collier, and why would you say it in bad air, basically. And Stewie, and it's like, you can like Stewie. You can like Stewie. I don't dislike Stewie. I don't dislike Fee. I like Fee. Like, it's just a case, it's a conflict of interest. And what Satou said summed it up again.
Satou, you were saying on TikTok that the league doesn't want you guys playing on Unrivaled, the league doesn't want you guys playing overseas. What was expressed to you?
I wasn't aware that they already publicly announced.
I don't understand that, like, Satou goes, I wasn't aware they already publicly announced it. One, she said it herself. And two, Gabby Williams said it All-Star Weekend. She wasn't the first person to say it, but she said it. What's she on about? I didn't know they publicly announced it. She wasn't even the first person to publicly say it. But, yeah, it is. I'd say she was probably told, she's probably told, don't do that. And to stop saying stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, like, she said it. Was it in this one where she said it?
I'm sad. I mean, that's wrong. I made more money at Unrivaled than excluding this year in my entire WNBA career. So
she said excluding this year, which means Satou Sabally made less than 200K at Unrivaled. The WNBA, I shit you not, are trying to offered to quadruple the salary. So basically, offered Satou double what she would be making her current WNBA season and Unrivaled combined, making double that. They offered her double that. And Satou's called it a slap to the face. They offered double the Unrivaled and her WNBA salary combined, and she said it was a slap to the face. Like, for all the players being like, Unrivaled this, Unrivaled that, like, the players averaged 250K. They averaged 250K. And you also have to take into account that there were players earning way more than that in your Sabrini and Escus. I reckon Angel Reese was making easily 350, 400K. That would be my assumption, is that that's what she was making. But at the end of the day, players made a lot more than Satou. Satou keeps her foot in Kathy's neck. And that's what I always say about Satou complaining. It's like, it's the Satou who cried Kathy. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, no matter what happens, no matter what it is, whether it has nothing to do with Kathy Engelbert, Satou calls out Kathy. Like, it doesn't matter. It could be over anything. She goes mad about 5 games in 8 days, and I'm like, every single team in the WNBA at some point in the season plays 5 games in 8 days. Is it a shit one? Yeah. But every single team does that. And unfortunately, do you want to know, and anyone saying, oh, make the season longer. But that only benefits players that are playing in Unrivaled. Lengthening the season only benefits the players that are playing in Unrivaled, because unless these players are making more money, any of the players that go overseas in their off season instead of staying in America in their off season, they're not like their overseas team will be having none of that. Who paid them more than the WNBA? So it's not something being like, oh, we can just lengthen the season. Like it's something like a month. It's 2 weeks between the college season ending and the draft, and then it's a month between the draft and the start of the season. And then most players, unless you're like, if you're in the finals, it is what it is. But most players start their season at the end of September overseas. So it's one of those ones where it's just, and again, it's a whole conflict of interest. It is a conflict of interest when it comes to these unrivaled players debating on behalf of the WNBA. Because there are a lot of ways that the WNBA can, or these WNBPA can try to negotiate things that only benefit unrivaled players. Like increasing the season so that it ends in November instead of October, making the season a month longer, only benefits players in unrivaled. Because it means that the players that are in the WNBA that aren't in unrivaled are going to be making, the players in China are going to be making less money. The players going to Europe are going to be making less money. The players going to Australia are going to be making less money. They're not going to, even if they're offered, let's just say the WNBA offered them 7 times increases. Let's just say they 7 times, there's 7x their salary, so that every single player is getting paid more. With the rule of you're not allowed playing unrivaled. There are so many people involved in unrivaled that'll never happen. That'll never happen because they're all involved in unrivaled. But if the rule was that they can't play in Europe, that would happen because they're trying to lengthen the season, which would basically destroy players' chances of playing in Europe or playing in China, making them make less money. So there's a huge conflict of interest. The fact is that most of the people at the debate board are owners in unrivaled. And your ownership becomes worthless if unrivaled stops. If players can't play in unrivaled, your ownership stake becomes worthless. So yeah, there's a huge conflict of interest. There's a huge conflict of interest all around with anyone. Any of those 30 players on Rival, because they all are part owners of that league. They all own a chunk of the league. There's a huge conflict of interest between those and in what they're specifically arguing for. And I'm glad Neko Wumake isn't in Unrivaled, but there's a huge conflict of interest. And yeah, the league, of course, they don't want players to play in Unrivaled. Of course they don't. Why would they? Why would they? We saw Benijah Laney Hamilton get injured. We saw Angel Reese start the season off horrendously coming off an injury. We saw Breanna Steward. They didn't know if she was going to be able to start the season. She had to get surgery on her meniscus. Like, we saw a whole bunch of injuries in Unrivaled. We saw players, again, Benijah Laney Hamilton out for the season. Shit, it happens. It happens. And it's a real interesting one to see just the way things are going. And for me, the way I'm looking at it is like in all of these situations, it sounds like the unrivaled players, not that they're going to go for anything unreasonable, not that they're going to do anything crazy, but it's like the players that are in unrivaled, I think because they've got such a controlling stake in these negotiations, I think that they would accept something that says players are not allowed playing any other league other than Unrivaled. I actually think that WNBPA would agree for extra money as long as it doesn't affect Unrivaled, because that is their pockets. Not a lot of people, not everybody's, but it's their pockets. And that's going to help the tippity top of the league. But the lower players in the league, I don't know what it would do. I don't know what it would do, because I could see if the only way this league goes into a lockout is if Unrivaled is a sticking point. Because there are owners in Unrivaled that are way, way too close to these negotiations, that they're not going to, under any circumstances, give up on Unrivaled. If that is the only way the league goes into lockout, is if Unrivaled is the non-negotiable. Is if for the owners it's non-negotiable, they can't play in Unrivaled. They offer a whole bunch more money, but you can't play in Unrivaled. Because let's be real, like, Neka Wumake has talked about players wanting equity in the league. You can't give players equity in the league because one of two things happens. There's either a finite amount of equity, so that down the stretch, every single player that comes into the league in the future is fucked over completely. Or you dilute the amount of shares in the league to make your equity essentially worthless. One of those two things are going to happen. But anyway, yeah, that's the video. I'll see you guys.